there is this aspect of us that it's like when things aren't moving, it isn't a time to make a decision, because making a decision for yourself means it's because you're trying to get out of the feeling place that you're currently having. And the
Mm.
feeling place is something for you to experience without judgment, which means your ego wants you to make a decision because you think you'll feel better. But the idea is the decision you're going to make is steeped in whatever emotion you're having. So if you're in a high, you're going to say yes to things that are no's. And when you're in a low place, you're going to say no to things that should have been yeses. So the idea is, can you sit, like you said earlier, can you sit still with, things aren't going well. Let me just take a breath here. Let me see, like, what's churning up in my gut. What is my intuition? What is my strategy and authority telling me? Because it really is the closest thing to truth I'm going to get, unless I truly can accept that I am a channel or whatever it might be.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Wealth Within Us. I am Michelle Blaze, and today I am very fortunate to have Michelle McInnis with me. She is the founder of the Clarity Room, where she helps women entrepreneurs and those in life transitions align with their purpose, passion, and power. She blends human design, astrology, and intuitive strategy that guides their clients to overcome self-doubt, trust their inner voice, and build lives and businesses that feel deeply fulfilling. Now, who doesn't want that?
Mm.
Her mission is to help women remember who they are and move forward with confidence and clarity. Oh my gosh, you do a lot and you are amazing. And I
Mm.
definitely am on board with us all remembering who we are. I think it's so important right now at this time. And
Mm.
I just want to get a feel like you've got so much experience, and I know that you've combined probably all of your life into this. So where did this kind of get started for you, that you felt this shift to move towards this?
I think it was when I was a social worker for the state of Michigan back in the day, and I was in children's foster care, the toughest job on the planet.
Yes.
Bless anybody who still does it. And what I found was in my years of being a social worker was how the differences kind of between how men and women were treated, and how children, they themselves had some scripts that were written for them. And I found it very frustrating because there were no tools besides just telling people how to do things that they were supposed to do, which didn't hit their belief systems. It didn't hit their passions. I couldn't get to a deeper understanding. I didn't have the time to have a deeper understanding of like why this experience was happening, why they were finding themselves in abusive cycles. Right. So I had to step out and I did so. And I decided at that point in time that I needed to learn as many tools as I could to help people empower themselves, work through their cultural belief systems or whatever it is that wasn't working for them, help them to do their own healing work, and then launch them into this new area of like, is it okay for me to do what I love? Because people who are in crisis situations are just in survival mode. And when we're in survival mode, you can't even think about what your passions are. So there is a big gap between a lot of people who aren't even a part of like that don't need things like social services. What I see and when I left there, and the last 30 years has all been about what can I learn to understand people's human behavior and how we can work through human behavior so that we can like crack the code for ourselves to like feel better in our own human skin. Because I think most of us are walking around that there's some components of ourselves that we don't understand, we don't realize, or we don't like.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
So what I am hearing from you is that I totally agree with you. One thing I definitely picked up on that you said right away is that these scripts.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it is these scripts that we're repeating from our parents, from our teachers, from people that we assume or look to as authority figures.
Yeah.
And when you're in that environment, people are in that fight or flight survival mode. So
Mm-hmm.
where is the time to just, the other thing I heard you say was that to just tell them. So it's so hard to just tell anybody. I should say it's so easy for people to say, "Oh, just do this or just do that."
And it
But
doesn't
how,
fit.
like, from the person receiving it, it's
Mm-mm.
kind of like you already know that. And then
Yeah,
I
yeah.
always say that when someone's telling me that, it's like, well, yeah, I kind of already know that, but well, how do I get there? Because these patterns, these scripts that are either running through our head all
Hmm.
the day or seriously running through society. So it's not just us, it's pervasive. It's kind of like running everywhere. To break those loops so that, I mean, imagine if you just took, and I'm always a big proponent of, if you just take time for yourself, quiet time, not time
Hmm.
scrolling on social media or watching something
Right.
or anything, but if you just took time, that's when you can, and you don't need any money to do it. That's when you can figure out what it is that you're truly passionate about, what it is that you truly love, and hear that inner voice. Because everything is all else is just noise
It
blocking
is noise. It
from.
truly is noise. Yeah. And I think the interesting part is that when I started to take on astrology and human design and do deep dive studies of them, I think it's interesting because both of them, when you overlap both human design and astrology, you get such a clear picture, first of yourself and who the essence and the foundation of who you are. And that's when I found, when I did astrology first, there was like, okay, this makes sense. And then we started talking about the age of Aquarius, that we're stepping into that, right? We're
Right.
leaving the age of Pisces and we're going into the age of Aquarius. And what does that really mean? And then when I took a look at human design, my mind got
Can you
blown
explain a
because,
little bit
oh,
more what
sorry.
human design is? Just
Sure,
for people
sure.
who don't know. I mean, you and I both know it, but just if you're not overly familiar with human design, just a real quick thing, 'cause
Yeah, yeah.
it's
Human,
fascinating.
yeah, human design takes just like astrology, it takes your birth date and your birth time. It's kind of like an imprint. And human design takes the I Ching, quantum mechanics, the chakra system, astrology, and the Kabbalah, and kind of mixes it all together. And it goes into what I personally feel like is a much deeper look at a human spirit and like what it is that emanates from you naturally and what things might be masked. So it's a very complex system, but it for a reader, for somebody who knows and has studied it for years, when I look at it, I truly feel like, oh, I see the person for who they are outside of the noise, right? Because I think,
Mm.
like you just said, it's like there's so much noise going on in the world. How do I know what's right for me? Oh, it's just
Yeah,
easy. It's easier just to go with the flow. It's easier just to go with what everybody else is saying or what the experts are saying. But we're literally sitting in a time where we're walking the age of Aquarius, but in human design, we call it that we're leaving the cross of planning and we're stepping into the sleeping phoenix, which means that we're all learning to fly our own wings and have our individual sovereignty while still living amongst everybody else who has their own individual sovereignty. But that means that the cross of planning, which is has we've been living in since the 1600s, really is about how we had to stabilize structures and we had to kind of go with the flow. We had to go with the herd in order for us to survive. And what I still see, because we're just stepping into both of these genres, and the age of Aquarius is the exact same thing. Let your freak flag fly. I know that, not everybody's into that, but in your own world where it's not bothering anybody else, right? It is like your own
right.
sovereignty is that it's finding your own power and not worrying about the judgments of other people. And gosh knows we all worry about what people are going to think about anything that we do. It's one of the biggest things that I come up with
Right.
when
Yeah.
working with
And
clients.
I would add, and not taking the sovereignty away from other people, because I
Yeah.
think that's the trap that we are in right now.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that that's the exciting part, that we're in a very crunchy time where but that's why for me, because of my years of social work, I always had a private practice. And what I found was is that when I was doing the traditional, and it works, but for me it was like I need to get a little bit deeper with people. I need when they come to me, I don't want them to be seeing me for years. I want them to get what they need, get the tools that they need, and move out. So when I discovered astrology, it started to help. And then when then when I found human design and I finally understood it, clients were coming and they were having these big epiphanies because I was zipping right to it. I could see through all, it's like, I think that was kind of a learned behavior because this is the foundation of who you are. Now, I do want to preface this. There are a lot of people out there who learn these modalities and say this is the one way and the only way that you teach or you understand human design. And it can kind of throw people off in meaning like, oh, I have to follow exactly what it says. No, no, no. Human design and astrology is a way for you to see the foundation of who you are and blow up your gifts, your natural gifts, and utilize those for yourself
Love
because
that.
we've been in that cross of planning where everybody's doing the same things. That individual state of who we are got thrown away. And also the
Yes.
intuitive side of ourselves got thrown away. You got to follow this person. They know what they're doing. Give all of your power away to this. And now we're saying, oh crap, that hasn't really worked. So who am I?
Yeah. And who
And
am I outside of this, the herd, the sheep, whatever you want to call it,
yeah,
that we're
yeah,
almost programmed to believe
yeah.
because that benefits a select few. It doesn't benefit you and I. So, like you said, so how do we step out and listen to our own voice to figure out who we are? And more importantly, probably more what are our gifts, which is who we are.
Yeah, and like a gift can simply be that, there is a component in human design that talks about people who are leaders or somebody who's a good storyteller or a
Mm.
great listener. And although somebody say, well, that's not a big deal, and this is typically what happens is if somebody's just getting introduced to human design and they get the reading, they're like, yeah, I kind of knew some of that about myself. And my question is always, what's the one that you said that is not me at all? Because that is always the one that probably has been quieted the most or been told it was bad or wrong, or maybe it just wasn't acknowledged when you were growing up, right? Because culturally, most of us are still in survival mode. And survival mode to me, and intuitively, what I've been getting is that we're still all operating like we don't think we can survive tomorrow. And again, that shows up from the cross of planning that I talked about in human design. Like we all had this idea that we all had to do it the same way and it gave us structure, which was good, right? Because you think back in the time, there wasn't much structure. And but what happens is when we understand how much more in depth we can learn about ourselves and use these tools to expand what our passions are, we keep slipping back into, but I'm not sure I feel safe enough in doing that. And that tells me that there's a lot of cultural and family lineage that we are all still operating from in a quiet way because you think about how many quiet nuances, especially we're women, so I want to talk about it, women nuances about how statistics show for women in business, we don't make as much as our counterparts. And I've done a deep dive into that as of recently. And there's so many different ways you can go into it, but a lot of women don't feel safe, don't feel supported, they don't feel safe, and they don't recognize that their gifts and talents are so needed right now. But most women have done things that they're passionate about without pay. And so when you start to incorporate the idea of money for women, that kicks in every response they've ever had about survival mode, good or bad. Does that make sense?
It really does.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm sure
Yeah.
a lot of people out there can absolutely relate to that. Whether you're in corporate, whether you're in a small business, whether you're an entrepreneur, I think it's kind of across the board for most.
Truly. Truly. Yeah, it doesn't matter if you're in corporate or not, it's still the same thing.
Yeah,
Now, it's gotten better. Let's just say that. Like all of this is
true.
progressing and it will progress and it will get better, but we're kind of in the meat of it, right? We're in the meat of it. I think you and I were raised in a time where we were told we can be anything we want to be. Yet, like I told my mom I was a Catholic. I was raised as a Catholic and I told my mom I wanted to be a priest and she said, "Well, you can't be that." After she had just told me I could be anything I wanted to be. And I said, "What do you mean?" And she goes, "You're a
Yeah.
girl." And in that moment, I knew. And I think a lot of us have
Well,
had those
and I
experiences.
think, we were told that too. And then you go out into the world after you graduated high school or college or
Right.
whatever it was you were going to do, and you found that that really wasn't the case
Yeah.
as
It wasn't
well
the case.
either. Yeah,
Yeah.
at least in our experience, I do think I think you're right. I think things are changing,
Hmm.
and I think, and I'll go out on a limb here and just say it. I might piss some people off, but I think it's that boomer generation. Once that more of that generation kind of steps down,
Mhm.
I think things will start to shift a little bit faster. Because I think
Yep.
that boomer generation, from a generational standpoint, is really trying to hold on to that power. And you can see it. You can just see it on a worldwide stage. You can see it with
Yeah.
control the governments and corporations and stuff. Most of
Yep.
them should have retired and like just lived a happy life and left everybody else alone.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of truth to that. I think after we've stopped, if any of us ever stop growing and learning that there's other ways of doing it. And I understand I'm getting up there in age and so I can appreciate, but I also acknowledge and appreciate everything that they did do, right? Every generation has done their thing that they had to climb through in order for us to be able to say, okay, now we want more, right? Which
Mhm.
is why people always talk about the law of attraction. What is the law of attraction? Well,
Yeah.
it's the things that you want, right? But after you get the thing that you want, there's another thing that you want. And so each generation, we're building off of the structure of we have to be safe. We have to incur security, safety, and
Yes.
security.
Out
And
of survival mode.
out of survival mode, it had to be. And so now we're seeing, okay, in truth, we all know that even if I lost everything, I know that I would have someone I could go sleep on the couch with. I'm not going to be, for most people, and I know that there are other circumstances, but I'm going to say for a majority of people, you're not going to have to go live out in the woods unless you wanted to, right? If
Mhm.
crisis were to happen, somebody's going to help me. Where in the past that didn't exist. There was no support. There was no the communities were small, but we're still operating from that sense. I mean, I look at my house and I see how many things I have.
Mhm.
And then I can go into this mode of like, but I'm worried about tomorrow. I don't have enough. I don't have enough. Your brain, your ego will always tell you you don't have enough, even when you have enough, because that's the game it wants to play with you. And so I think for all of us stepping more into this idea of like, can I really follow my passion in everything, in my personal life and in my business? And will everything support me in doing that? Well, we've watched our counterpart do that for a gazillion years. And now it's time for us as women to step up and say, this is what I desire. This is what my passion is. And even though sometimes our passions have a little bit more touchy feely to it in some aspects, and that hasn't necessarily been respected a lot, people are going to start to value this more and more and more because it includes your intuition within it, the thing that's been cut out of most business, in my opinion, corporate.
I would definitely agree with that. I think intuition is kind of like, and especially I think ages ago it was like witchery or something, or just
Mm-hmm.
food as woo woo or whatever. But those are the dormant gifts, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
So
I
as
mean,
part of this age, it's not just showing in human design our gifts, but our dormant gifts.
oh, yeah. Yes, and I can see your fears immediately. That shows up very quickly and the areas that you might, wobble in, when I'm working with somebody and I know that they've just made a shift. I know where they're going to wobble because I see it. And again, some of that's my intuition and some of that's human design or the astrology or the transits that are going on or just past experiences that they've told me about. It's a collective of things, but yeah, that's the intuition part of ourselves has been deemed as something that's negative, which is so sad to hear because it truly, to me, is you connecting up to that soul aspect of yourself that's connected to the divine or whatever you believe in or don't believe in. And that's the thing that when you say it like this, it's like, well, I knew I shouldn't have done that. My stomach kind of told me. That's typically as far as a lot of people will want to go with it.
Right.
That's your intuition
Yeah. Your
because
gut, but your second brain, right?
it is, and that's that's another thing. When you learn about your strategy and authority in human design, it gives you an opportunity to practice the body aspect because the mind is here to help us process and think and analyze and get good questions and maybe form beliefs. But
And
it
keep us
isn't
safe,
the
right?
it yeah, it is not the place though to make your decisions. There's a very small few people that actually mental projectors get to do. Actually, they have to use their brain to make decisions,
Okay.
but they're only they're like 1% of the 20% of people who are projectors. So it's just small. I have a personal close friend who is that. And it's very interesting to see her process her information. The rest of us, it's in our body in some way, shape, or form, but we're not told to trust our body yet. Now, I shouldn't say that. We've been on a huge shift in that. When we got meditation coming over to the west from the east, we got yoga and tai chi and qigong, all of those things start to get people back into their bodies and say, oh, it's connected. I don't know about you. I always like, no, it's the mind. My mind has to analyze it. My mind gives me the best answers. And it's so not the truth. It's
Oh,
so not the truth. Yeah. And that
yeah.
means you have to trust your intuition.
Exactly. And I'm an overthinker. So it's like I can really let my mind get out of control. And it's like, holy cow, like I sometimes I can see myself spiraling and then I just like kind of settle myself back in my heart or in my gut and be like, all right,
Yes.
what is it that I should truly? And sometimes I'm like, you just give me a sign.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Then again,
Absolutely.
I guess that's not really trusting what we kind of already know because that sign usually
It's
is,
on the outside.
yep, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh.
And that's interesting. I think that's funny you brought that up because I've been doing a lot. I've been doing a series on TikTok about signs because what I'm seeing now is how sometimes um, for particular energy types, like generators and manifesting generators really do a great job utilizing signs, right? It's a cool thing for them
Which
to
I am. I'm a
enhance.
manifesting generator. So
But what I see
say that.
is that they're not using their strategy and authority. They're looking for the signs. And what happens is with signs is you can interpret it into whichever direction you want it to be.
Yes. It's like
And
over analytical overthinkingness. It's like, oh, well, that could mean like a million things. Give me multiple choice questions and I'll give you a reason why every one of them
yes.
could be the answer. It's ridiculous.
Yes.
Oh,
And
well,
so
I can
what
see how that works, you
yes.
know?
And so they're making decisions based on these signs. And like as of late, because I do a lot of business coaching, like they'll say, well, I've seen, that a lot of like things aren't taking off, things aren't doing well. So I'm taking that as a sign that I need to shift. Oh, and listen, I understand it because I used to do that. And it's like there is this aspect of us that it's like when things aren't moving, it isn't a time to make a decision because making a decision for yourself means it's because you're trying to get out of the feeling place that you're currently having. And
Mm.
the feeling place is something for you to experience without judgment, which means your ego wants you to make a decision because you think you'll feel better. But the idea is the decision you're going to make is steeped in whatever emotion you're having. So if you're in a high, you're going to say yes to things that are no's. And when you're in a low place, you're going to say no to things that should have been yeses. So the idea is, can you sit, like you said earlier, can you sit still with, things aren't going well. Let me just take a breath here. Let me see, like, what's churning up in my gut? What is my intuition? What is my strategy and authority telling me? Because it really is the closest thing to truth I'm going to get unless I truly can accept that I am a channel or whatever it might be. So I think it's interesting that signs are beautiful, but this is what I always tell people. If you're really going to do this, and I still believe in signs, don't get me wrong, but I always go back to the three rule.
Okay.
If it shows up three times, it's definitely something. If it shows up once, it could, I'm sure it does have meaning to you, but if you're in an emotional wave or you're having an experience where you're feeling like I'm plateauing and I'm freaking out, you are going to sway with the sign means. But if you're you're just lollygagging in your day and, you set the intention, like I'm trying to get clarity on this. Because part of it is, did you set an intention at the beginning of the day so that when you do receive the signs, you can read them? Or was it just a random thing? And I'm not saying that these random things don't have their position in life. But when you're making a decision in something in life or business, be a little bit more discerning about what's popping up for you and instead go inward and find out what your strategy and authority is and utilize that first and then use the signs and the symbols on top of it. And then if you really want to get clear, have it 3 times. That's when I first started down this journey. I always told myself I have to see the sign 3 times because then I know it's trying to get in front of my attention.
Yeah. And I
Does
don't
that make
think it
sense?
has to be, it does. And as you're saying this, I'm thinking, so I don't think it has to be the exact same sign 3 times, but 3 signs that point to whatever you're contemplating over, right?
I think that's going to be something that everyone develops. I was
Okay.
very hard on it. I was like, it has to be the same thing 3 times.
Okay. Because I
But
kind of look at
that's
it like
me.
I'll get 3 things that are just like I've been recently pondering something over, and it's like I finally got my final sign yesterday, but they weren't all the same sign, but they were all pointing to the same thing. They
Perfect.
were
And you
pointing
have to,
to yes
yeah,
to the same
trust your
thing.
intuition on that. You know what I
Okay.
mean? Your strategy and authority. And then
Yeah.
are you an emotional or just a Manny Gen? Are you emotional manifesting generator or just a gener or a manifesting generator? Do you know? You don't have to know. It's okay.
I don't know.
Okay, that's okay. That's okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I would say then if the third time the sign comes through, then I would get quiet with myself.
Okay.
And then I would say, because you have to have yes and no questions to yourself.
Mm,
That's how you operate. Your gut or your emotions, either one, those are the two that operate your strategy would be, am I reading this sign correctly? And let your body give you a response.
mm.
So neutral is no. Most people tip neutrals into yes. Neutrals, if there's no response from your body, that's a no.
Okay. That's good to know.
And sometimes yeses are very faint.
Mm.
So what I say is like activation of your sacral, which actually I have a program on my website on that because I think it's so important. So many of us do not even know how to activate your sacral center, which is where generators and manifesting generators get their answers from. If you're an emotional, it adds another layer to it when you're looking at your chart. But it's important to always ask yourself yes and no questions all day long. It's a great practice because then it's activating it, and then like if somebody gives you an overarching question, or you say, okay, was this the sign? That's a yes and no. Or am I understanding it? And then I would ask it in different directions. Like, I saw a blackbird, and to me that means this. Am I reading the sign correctly? And if I get neutral, I'm like, okay, let me ask it in a different way. And I would ask it in the opposite way. Like I did see three crows, but I'm not sure that that really was for me. And then I would allow the yes or no to come up. Do you see what I'm saying? You
Yes.
flip the question so that you're playing more into how the body is responding. And it takes a while to get that body to really respond because it's been ignored.
Right. Can you use other tools when you're asking those questions like muscle testing or
Oh,
pendulum
muscle testing.
or
Yeah.
yeah, I do love the muscle testing and or like a pendulum or like other sort of like yes no type of things.
That you can. And I started off that way. And I still
Okay.
utilize that stuff here and there. But again, to me, it's like, especially pendulums. This may not be that people may not like this, but I think pendulums are the easiest things to influence. So if your
Yeah,
soul wants you,
energy around it. Yeah.
yes. And it's like, if I really
Hmm.
want it to be yes, I'm probably going to influence it. So you have to learn how to clear yourself before you do anything, whether it's
I think
cards
that's a
or
really good point, actually.
and that's why I say if you can just trust what your gut says, it's inside of you, that's living the experience with you. I always tell people, many gens and generators, like your emotions and your gut are the place in which your soul is tapping and talking to you. But you have to get quiet enough to hear it and to resonate with it. And a lot of the times, even when it's neutral, people will say, well, that's no big deal. There's no emotion to it. So I'll just do it anyways. And just watch. Watch for the evidence of what happens when you just do it anyways. For me now, I've seen it's tipped into the scale that things don't usually work out very well when I don't follow the neutrals because I've been conditioned into thinking that neutrals means it's a yes. No big deal, I can do it. And it helps people figure out like, is this really what I want to be doing right now? But if you're in an emotional wave, you can't trust anything because you have to be with the emotion for a while.
Yeah.
Maybe you got to journal about it. Maybe you got to cry it out. Maybe you've got to like just be quiet with it. We are taught to rush through emotions, and then in the emotion we're trying to, a lot of the times, I mean, I just caught myself last night doing this. I was really irritated by something my neighbor did. And my husband, thank goodness, was like, is that really that important, Michelle? I'm like, oh, I'm trying to solve something I'm irritated by, and I'm still having my emotional wave about it. So I know I'm going to be a little snarky, a little mean, or whatever. And you're like, you're
Yeah.
right. I got to sit with it. What does this represent? It represents somebody kind of taking something that I feel is mine, and I feel that there's injustice. And aren't we seeing a lot of injustice right now? So I'm getting triggered by something in my own life that the global world is telling me. So I know I'm in a way. So I know I do not need to speak it to anybody, and I do not need to make a decision. I need to be with that emotion. And what does being with an emotion mean? It means get quiet with it and let it have its voice.
Yeah. And I think just I've studied and trained for the emotion code, and it
Mhm.
is like we'll process emotions to like a certain point,
Mhm.
and then it still stays stuck because we don't often complete what you were just talking about. We don't complete the processing of that
Yeah.
emotion.
Yeah.
We'll think about it for a little bit and then we'll move on thinking that it's cleared when really it's not. And it's just like this, like the hose of flow,
Right?
like a little stone in there, just maybe blocking it just a little bit. But then those stones add up.
Yes. Yep, they do. They
Yeah.
do. And then that's when the triggers start to come, right? And so
Yeah.
I know what my, because I've studied my charts for a long time, and I'm still kind of like uncovering things that, I've been conditioned into thinking. And some of them didn't come from my family or my religion or my group. Some of it just came from me at a younger age watching TV, and TV kind of conditioning into me thinking that if somebody does something that I don't like, somehow it's affecting me. And in reality, a lot of the times it's not affecting me, but it's pissing me off because it's going against what I believe and my safety and my security, right? It comes back to that whole safety and security again. And then I have to remind myself, is this really making an effect on my life right now? And if it is, then there's something to take a look at. But if it isn't, then I've got to say, ooh, this is kind of an ouchy space that I probably need to have my inner self like have a few moments with it, because we're all so busy in life. Like, and information just comes inward. So going inward and being still with your emotions for a moment is like, and I used to be that way. It was like, oh, I don't have time for that. And it's like we're sitting in, like we're getting ready to timeline jump or quantum jump into this new reality of like, this is instead of just saying this is my truth, which is kind of nauseating now, but we needed it, and that's what social media has done for everybody. It gives everybody their platform to say this is my truth. But now we're going to step into the reality of, but are you living your life that leads with passion instead of fear? And that takes a lot of guts. It takes a lot of ingenuity. It takes a lot of somebody saying you can do this. And if you don't have anybody, if you can't do it for yourself at the beginning, because most of us can't, because of past conditioning. You need somebody in your corner, whether it's your best friend or your partner in life or whoever, like to kick you across that quantum thing, because we can't take with us the fear that has been institutionalized in
Um,
on earth as of right now in order to go into a more consciously evolved planet.
That's so incredible that you say that because I see so many of us doing that. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? Where it's like
Yeah.
we get so far and then it's almost like we hit a little bit of a roadblock.
Yeah.
And that, like you said, that fear kicks in. And imagine if that fear wasn't there and you were just fully in your confidence and in your truth, like, I know I'm doing this and I know I'm going forward and I know that it is going to work out. And like you just said, I don't think a lot of us are quite there yet. It is, and it is that lingering programming, I
Mm-hmm.
guess you is what you would call it. So how do we get past that part? Because I think that's a lot. And I look at myself and I look at a lot of people, and you get the proverbial question, well, what do you want in life? What is it that you really want? What is it that you really desire? And I think even when we do figure that out, like for me, I'm so clear on what I want, but yet there's a disconnect from getting it. And I haven't even programmed myself. Like I've actually tested myself on these things. In
Mhm.
fact, I recently did it. I was like, well,
Okay.
I'm saying I want this thing.
Yeah.
And I went and did the thing, for a couple of days. So like basically it's like, well, where do I want to live? I kind of know where I want to live. So I was away. I'm like, you know what? I'm driving right past it. I'm going to spend 5 days there. Maybe it was in my head. Maybe this isn't really where I want to be. And it's just I've made it into something that, maybe it isn't. So
Yeah.
I did, and I stayed. And I'm like, and I can even tell you, just crossing the bridge to go where I went, I
Yeah.
kind of broke down and cried. I was like, oh, this is where I'm supposed to be. But yet I feel like there's whatever things holding me back from living that passion, from living that purpose, from knowing these things that I want, that feel and resonate, that I've been checking myself with. So what does hold us back so much? And I know things don't happen overnight, but it's
Right.
a long time.
Well, and that's the thing too, especially when you know, like you've got the vision and you're like, I know
Yeah.
what I want,
Mm.
right? And I think a lot of the times what happens is when we think about what we want, like when you drove over the bridge is what you said, like you felt something.
Oh yeah, like
So,
I felt it in my whole body.
okay, it was a whole
Like I
body,
wanted to
yes.
to cry because I was so happy.
Yeah. So my question would be, and you said some of it, and I love it when people just say where they're at with no, like I've got to be perfect in saying this because it reveals a lot to me. Like, okay, so it's an idea of so you want there, but it feels like what you're saying is it's too far of a stretch for you to
Okay.
say, I'm here now and I know what I want. But to get there seems like it's so convoluted. I don't know how to do it, or I know how to do it, but
Yes.
I don't like the idea of how I think I have to do it. And so what happens is we put ourselves in the way of everything, of all even the smallest little thoughts we have
Yeah.
about money, every little thought we have about so what I say is you always go back to the feeling state. We've all heard that, right? We go back to the feeling state of like, that was just a whole heck of a yes. So the problem is our analytical side of ourselves wants to have a plan, wants to say, this is how I'm going to get that. We're walking away, and that's a very patriarchal way,
It is, and
right?
it's a
Right.
very controlling way because it's like
Yes.
I want to control, and it's
Yes.
sometimes not even that I want to control. I don't only necessarily want to control it, but I want to know, like, well, how am I going to get there?
Yes.
It is that stepping into the unknown, and it doesn't have to be exactly. I'm sure everybody listening can relate.
Yes.
Just insert the thing that
Yes.
you want.
Exactly. And a lot of it has to do with if if you know that there's something you're desiring in your world, it's the idea that we have to get out of the idea that we're desiring it and we know it's coming.
That's a big shift.
And it's stepping into that faith of,
Yeah.
if I really do resonate with this, I don't have to worry about the how to. What I have to worry about is how much in my daily life am I doing the thing that fuels me and gives me passion now? Because if I'm not living a passionate life now, how can I jump from where I'm at now to this big passion that I really have? You'll get there, but it'll be a zig and a zag and a zig. And like I've got to work
Yeah.
hard and I got to pull myself up by my bootstraps and all of these. And this is what I say. Don't worry about what beliefs you have. They bloom up when you start to realize that there's something you're desiring in your world and you're not sure how to get there is my question would be, well, how much time are you spending in your passion? Or how much time are you spending in your worry? And are you listening to your gut to say, this is the next step? Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, I really want that thing. So now I'm going to start, when I think about, okay, it's good to have a plan, and I'm not looking at your chart. So there would be a lot of things I'd be looking
Yeah,
at in your chart,
yeah.
by the way, to show me like this is what she's really good at. This is the area she's gonna, there's some money tracking in there. And that's the first thing I would look at, right? Like, okay, does she have an open ego or a closed ego?
Yeah.
And
And
so
I
if,
think what also you said was that it's the I have tos. Okay, so this is what I
okay,
have to this, I have to that. And I think that's what goes through my mind. It's like, okay, well, if this is where I'm supposed to be and I feel it in my body, well, then I have to do this and I have to. And is it getting rid of the have tos?
yes, a
Because I
thousand
think it's
percent.
we
It's
put so
hard.
much pressure on ourselves because you think, well, I've seen other people do these things and I see what they did, so I have to do that. But that's not really the case,
No, because
right?
typically when people have been successful in something, they want to share it with the world. They want to say, "See, you can have it too."
Hmm.
But and this is the paradigm I'm trying to like shatter. It's like how they did it was probably so cohesive. If I were to look at all of their things in their charts and the transits, I'd be like, "Yep, I can see how it probably worked out for them." But we're all, like I said, we're still in that cross of planning. We're all trying to
Yeah,
figure out how
we
other
need to
people
pull
are
out of
doing
that
it.
herd. We need to pull out of the herd with
Yes.
this.
And how we do it is by following your passion on a freaking daily basis. How often do people say, even in your business or going to corporate, or if you're stay home mother doing the work, like all these things, like how much time have you put into, do I enjoy this? Because sometimes what we enjoy will shift, but we don't go along with it because we think in our conditioning of like it's got to be hard or they did it this way and so I got to follow their plan in order to do it. That is a big conditioning that we are breaking apart. So what I would say is you've been successful in other things. How did you do it before? Or I would say let's take a look at some of your conditioning patterns and like work through this. And it doesn't have to take years. But it will be like every time you catch yourself right now saying, I've got to do it this way. And if it doesn't feel good when you say that, you know that's not your step in that moment.
So again, it's
Uh,
tuning into our emotions to
yes.
even recognize that we don't feel good. And then and it kind of brings me up to this other thing. It's like, well, we should have pain along the way. It shouldn't be easy. We should have to work hard. And I think that stuff is so like, well, I'm not working hard enough. I'm not doing this enough. I'm not, all of that programming on top of it that we got to shatter.
It's difficult to walk in and not think if I don't work hard, I'm not going to make money because that has been the American
Oh,
way.
it has been so ingrained in me all of my life too. It's a
Yes.
hard one to break. It really is. Because you
I
think
mean,
you're taking, for example, that 10, 15 minutes to sit in silence and you're like, well, I could be doing this, 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 and this. I shouldn't be doing this. I should be working instead of doing this. And
yes.
then you avoid sitting in silence to hear what you really need to hear.
Right. And right. And so it's easier to get people to do it by just practicing, is this your hell yes in this moment? And it's so amazing to me because I will have women text me or email me. I worked with years ago and they're like, you know what? I forgot about my hell yes. And when I finally did it again, all the doors opened up. And I'm like, okay, that's really cool. And I never want to make it like it's just this one little step and your life is miracle. It's not. Like life is a freaking journey. But how much of it is it like you're pulling your ass along to, I'm sorry, I probably shouldn't swear, pulling yourself along to say, this is what I want. So by the time you get to it, this is why you always hear people say, I finally got to my goal. And all of a sudden, there wasn't this joy and excitement in it. I was like, shoot, did I do it wrong? Like what's happening? And it doesn't even have
No.
to be monetarily. It can be anything in life. And it's like, because the process of getting it should be joyful. It shouldn't be difficult. It shouldn't be hard and heavy. It doesn't mean that we don't do work behind it either.
Right.
So for a quick example, like, so if you're wanting something that's financially out of what your realm is right now, have you started a quick envelope? Have you deemed something like this is it? I'm committing to it because there is a level of commitment. And if you're not committed to something 100%, don't even bother committing to it. So if it's a heck yes for you, but then there's no level of commitment because you can't believe it, the belief has to become, can I enjoy the steps of getting there? Can I get really excited about this whole journey I'm going to tell everybody about? I decided in the moment, I'm 100% committed. I'm going to do this. I don't need a timeline. I don't need to know when it's going to happen. I just know that every single day I'm doing something that I'm committed to this, whether it's putting a penny in a jar, whether it's like I'm looking up houses, whether it's like, no, I'm not going to spend that extra money over here because I really want this, or whether it's I am so excited, I love what I do for a living, and I'm going to put on a promotion for my business because I realize that right now I'm really energized and I'm really excited about it, which means all of your gifts and talents get sent out to the world, and people all of a sudden are like, oh, I want to hire you for this, or I want you to do this. But if you're sitting in the cocoon of like, there it is, it's way out, and we all do it, there's no judgment here. Oh, it's way out there, and I know when I crossed that bridge I felt that, woo, But why can't I feel that now? Because you're not enjoying the journey of getting there.
Ah, wow, that's kind of mind blowing. I'm just saying, it's so true because I don't think we're really taught to endure and to enjoy the journey.
No.
Yeah, because it's a bunch of I have to, I should, you know what I mean? It's
Yes.
all these, well, I got to do this and I have to do that and I
Right.
should do this. And
Because previous generations had to live like that. They had to live in this like, nope, I got to work hard, and this is really, and there, we just didn't have the knowledge. We didn't have what we have now, and now we're living in such an abundant time, right? That we now realize that we are still connected to that survival mode, that I have to work hard mode. Listen, I do work hard. But I work hard in only things that are hell yeses, which then makes it not feel like so much work.
Mhm. Which is like, I mean, it's such a life-changing thing.
And
But,
it's
and
it's
then I'm sure it
mind-bending.
kicks in. It's like, well, what about all these things that I've now committed to that I really don't enjoy? Now I got to get rid of them.
Okay, so here's the thing I want to say about that because that's really key. That's a key. Good thing you brought that up. So I always tell people make a list, make different lists for yourself and start saying, these are all the things I do in my personal life, in my fun time, and in my business. And I want you just to list them all out. And then you have to go through and this is a great practice for your gut. Like, do I enjoy doing this? Do I enjoy doing this? And you keep asking the questions to get that sacral. And this, again, is only works for generators and manifesting. I'm just talking specifically for those groups. It's like 70% of the population. But, and then after you do that, what happens is you're going to start to identify. And I usually identify when I'm doing something and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't even like this. But I liked it last year because change is happening much more rapidly. So something that you even liked last year may be pivoting. And especially for women in business are like, oh my gosh, if I make another pivot, people are going to think I'm nuts. Nope, you're growing and you're growing into this person who is really leaning to following her passion. And so we have to do it in steps sometimes. And there's nothing wrong with that. But then let's say there is something and you're like, I despise doing this. Then you need to ask whatever you believe in, like, okay, this is not in alignment with who I am anymore. Help me, help this just dissolve, or help me release this, or let them, if you've read the Let Them book, that can be helpful in it too, because you're going to be worried about judgment. And so you got to do the let them theory and let me theory. But I
Yeah.
always
Or
tell
hire it out if it's something that is essential to your business.
thousand
Hire it
percent
out.
that let it go to somebody else. And I have done that so many times. I mean, I'm so good now at like, I hate doing this part. Who could I hire? But I'm at that point that I can afford to do that. At the beginning, I couldn't. So
Right.
then it got magical. So I'm going to tell you a really cool magical story. So I had just steeped into human design
Mhm.
and I had to write my own verbiage on it because there's a big thing going on in the world of human design. But if you use my words, I'm going to sue you, which was ridiculous. But anyways, and it was a ton of content. And so I said to my belief system, I said, listen, I'm feeling really overwhelmed. I'm feeling like maybe I'm going to step out of this, but I'm so passionate about this, but I don't know how I can do it all. I need some help. Here's the SOS. I need some help in this particular thing. I'm not exaggerating. I had a friend who I hadn't seen in years. She messaged me. She said, hey, I just kind of got a nudge that you might need some help. I was like,
Wow.
who'd you get the nudge from? And she said, well, and I'm like, I get it. You don't have to say anymore. She said, I've got a few days off during the week now. And what do you need? And I'm like, well, I got this big project I'm working on. And I need somebody to bounce it off and do some typing for me with it. And she said, I'd love to do it. I said, I can't, because at that point I couldn't. I said, I can't afford to pay you. And she goes, that's okay. I heard it. You need it. I'm there for you. Ah, it makes me want to cry every time I think about it.
Wow.
I've had this happen to me countless times. So she came and worked with me. I want to say it was a year. I had to work through my guilt of this gift, and I knew I would pay it forward someday. But that work that her and I did, that she helped me process and write for me and put the content into Canva and put it into PDF files and change things every week for me, set the standard that I could do my job, because that would have taken me years to do what she did for me. That's what I mean. That's faith. That is, I can't do this. And if you're following your passion, you will see support come to you in the craziest of ways. And sometimes I don't even know that I acknowledge it, which is, I am always about the appreciation. Like she knew I appreciated it. And at the end, I was making money and I did give her some. Um, Nothing compared to the hours she put in. But I'm always mindful of that. Like I need to pass that forward. When I see somebody else doing something and I know I can give to them in a free way, I always do it because she was a sister that helped me out. So get your lists of yes and no's. Start to weed through it and enjoy the freaking journey of being human and having these experiences and these bumps in the road. The bumps in the roads are not meant to skew you off your path. They are, here's something you got to work through because in order to own or do what you want to do, we want you to strengthen this muscle. We want you to own that this is who you are. We want you to say that this is my passion and nothing's going to veer me from my passion.
That is conviction.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
It really
And
is, and it does make so much sense because I think so much it's like we almost just energetically give up because we're so tired. We're so tired of doing the same things, even in different ways that aren't getting us the results that we want. That I, I love what you said. It's like we think that this path is just laid out for us, but it's really not. It's like we're creating it along the way and having faith that what needs to step in or what needs to appear is going to be there. And that's kind of on us. So it really is an individual journey
mm-hmm.
within the collective, so to say. You know what I mean? Because there's all these other little pieces that you just showed your example come in and help us achieve what it is. So we're all kind of helping each other. We just have to have faith that someone's going to help us. And especially
Yeah,
as women, we're like, I'll be there for anybody. But yet we're
it's
like,
following the joy. It's following the joy. And supporting other women. This is my big thing.
yeah,
Supporting other women, like when you see that they're not happy, that they're miserable in something,
yes,
and saying, life isn't supposed to be this like
hard.
I think in aspects it's going to be hard. And
Okay.
but I'm not the person that believes that it's all flowery, but it's like, but if you're doing something that you A are committed to and B brings you joy,
Maybe miserable. It shouldn't be so miserable.
right? And some of that just has to do with like, a gazillion things. But I would say that the more that we follow the passion, the more that, if you believe in the law of attraction, well, if you're sitting at your desk every day and you're miserable at 50% of what you do, then 50% of your business is probably not going to be coming through to you because you've got kind of that flow block. You haven't cleared away the no's. There's only so much energy we have to give out in a day. But if you're spending half of that energy doing stuff you don't enjoy, then how is it that you're going to attract the right clients to you or the financial
Oh,
gains that you want? And sometimes we have to work through what that is. Well, I've been told I'm not good at this. Well, are you good at it? Well, according to my boss, and listen, I had to work through that. When I was in sales, I went from social work into sales, and I had a male boss, and I was the first female in it. And he wanted me to be very aggressive in my sales. I was a fabric sales rep. I worked with interior designers. Talk about a 180 going from foster care into
wow.
walking into $1 million homes. But my problem was I couldn't wrap my brain around the way he and the other guys were doing it. I had to do it my own way, which was personal. I'm a and I know my personality types through human design. I'm a 4/1. I want to know you. I want you to feel safe with me. And then you'll naturally want to do business with me. But everybody's is a little different, but I couldn't do it in the masculine way. And I had to learn how to work through that. This is a good example too. So I was in a job that I kind of liked. It brought in very good money. But I knew my passion was conscious work. Okay. So there was a point in time where all of us would complain about our boss. And we were all miserable. And I was on my journey. I was reading every book on how self-help of how to work through situations which you don't like. I still didn't know what passion was yet, but I was getting there. So there's steps in our journey. And so there was a point in time where my boss had ridden with me for the 500th time because I lived close to him and he didn't feel like getting in a plane and traveling. And so my clients were like, "Are you okay? Is your job in jeopardy?" I'm like, "No, he just lives close by me." So I get him in my car all day long with me. It's a treat. And I would bitch about it. I'd come home, I'd complain about it. I would call my coworkers and I would complain about it. And all of a sudden, one day, because I'd heard Michael Beckwith, love that man, and he was talking about, if something's not going right in your reality and it is not a heck yes type of thing, what are you doing to perpetuate it? I'm like, oh my God, I'm getting in my own way because I keep complaining about it. I'm committed to the complaining. I'm not committed to how I can shift that. So what I started to do is after the calls, all the reps would stay on, he'd leave and this is before, things like this. We would all stand and complain and I started clicking off. And then when he came to ride with me, I found things I really liked about him. And I would talk to him about that. So I learned to play his game, but I played it on his terms because it didn't cost me anything.
Yeah.
Sure enough, all the reps start calling me. It's like, what's going on with you? Your numbers are going up and you're not hanging out with us anymore. And I'm like, I can't complain anymore. I'm putting more blocks up for myself. And do you know what happened? 3 months later, I got a call from another company that was pursuing me and was going to pay me $20,000 to join their operation because they saw what I was doing and they wanted me. Now, in a million years, could I have seen that that was going to happen for me? And it all started because I committed to doing what felt better that didn't cost me anything. And that was my journey to like finding what my passion was because I still wasn't sure what my passion was at that point in time. Does that make sense? Does that help?
It really does, because I find if I put myself in that situation, I find the things that I complain about, I'm just perpetuating.
Yes. You're
And
keeping it
it's like,
alive. Yeah.
and it does take time, and you do have to catch yourself. It's almost like you need to be cognizant of it so that you can catch yourself every time and just stop. Because I often find that when I'm complaining,
Yeah.
additionally putting myself into some kind of victim mode. Like I'm a victim of some kind of a circumstance, and I'm powerless, and I'm not, and it's like no, and taking just stopping complaining and saying, well, what am I going to do about it? Or like you did, find another way to work in the same thing. Like you were still doing the same thing that you were complaining about, but
Hmm.
now you found another way to bring
Hmm.
joy or passion and to stop complaining about it. And I guess I would say if it's that much of a complaint and you hate it that much, then it would be on that list and you would
Yep.
be figuring out how to get rid of it.
Yeah. And the universe brought it to me, a whole new company, $20,000 in my pocket and making more than what I was making before on top of that. It was quite a wake up call. I was like, wow, if that's
Wow.
all it took was for me to get really focused on like, I'm still creating this for myself.
Yeah. And I think
Mm.
that's all a lot of us need is I think some of us we're just, it's like, well, I need that one quick win to get me over the hump. You know what I mean? But you got to set yourself up for that quick win. And as you just showed, sometimes it's not that hard. It doesn't cost money. It just, all it took was a change in perspective
It did, and it took some time. Like it was three
and
months
some
before
self
something came.
reflection.
There was a lot of self reflection going on, and it's like, and I was kind of like cocooning myself in because I knew if my coworkers were calling and they wanted to complain, I let them complain, but I didn't offer anything back, and they were like, "Hey, hello, are you there?" And I'm like, "I am." I'm listening, I'm supporting, and it
Yeah.
bothered them. And then they were like, well, what are you do? And then they started calling and like, what are you doing? And I'm like, you know what? I'm playing in my own reality here. And my reality is I was perpetuating it. And I don't want to perpetuate it. What a waste of time. So much energy that we burn in our brain with
Oh.
that stuff. Yeah.
And it's like you said, and that complaining, it was like you were kind of going with the herd. You weren't thinking outside that, but you were in that sort of herd, even though it was a small one, that herd
Yeah.
mentality. And
Yeah.
it's stepping outside and doing, well, what lights me up? This isn't making me feel good, so I need to find what makes me feel good.
And it was a small thing. Like
Yeah.
he liked to eat good lunches and I used to poo-poo it with them. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, he wants to tell me stories and I don't have to take them personally. He would tell me like this client used to do this. Why aren't they doing that with you? And when he would say that to me, I would just pivot the conversation. Well, tell me about what you did to get that business. That's all he needed to hear. And he caught on though.
Mm.
He said, you're always pivoting the conversation back to me. And I started laughing. And he goes, oh, I like to talk about myself, don't I? I'm like, and I benefit from listening to you. It didn't cost me anything.
No, and maybe he had his own self-realization. So, to your note, we're actually helping people by doing this.
And then the job offer came in. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, that was a
Yeah. So we're
cool
not only
moment.
helping ourselves, we're helping other people because, I the one thing that I hear a lot is that we are creator beings and we're supposed to be the creators of our life. But so much of us, we just give it up to default.
It's
And we're
easier to
not
devote.
stepping
Yeah.
into that being the creator because I think a lot of us are scared. It's scared to know that you're you're the creator because what if I create crap?
Yep. And guess what? If you've created it, you also can solve it. And
Yeah.
here's a visual I think that always helps people. It's like if you see those people movers like at the airport, right? And the ones that move really like envision one that moves
Yeah.
really slow and one that moves really, really fast. So the slow one is the ones that are usually lower energies, a little bit more negative. It's easy to get on that. Like you don't even have to look. You could just take a step and it's packed because people feel connection when they're complaining about things, right? And then you look over at the other people mover and it's moving so fast that you have to slow down, hold on to your bag, look down and take a step as it zips you off. And it goes so fast that there are a few people on it and it can throw you off really quick by somebody on the other lane saying, oh, isn't it hard to stay on that? And you'll be like, oh, it is. So then you get flipped over to the slow people mover. And I always say, here's the thing. If people would practice more about what is happening that feels really good for you today, you stay on that fast trajectory lane where you bypass all of the clogging of not getting your dreams. But it's difficult to do because not many people play in that atmosphere.
Yeah.
So when we play more in the atmosphere, is like, tell me what's going good. Tell me what's going really well for you. That's always like if you go to networking and you say to somebody or go to a party, say, what's going good for you? It is life changing sometimes for people like, oh, well, that's a great question. Instead of saying, how are you doing? Say, what's going good for you? Now, there'll be those perpetual people. It's like, nothing's going good for me. Like, cool. And I'll listen for a little while and then I step away, right? It's like, I can be a listener. It doesn't affect my energy. It doesn't change my frequency. The vibe around me is icky, but I can step away from that. But that's always a good thing to remind ourselves. Like,
Yeah.
tell me something good.
Yeah. I used to do it with my kids when they were younger. I'd be
I
like,
love that.
what was the best part of your day today? And I remember doing
Yeah.
that with them, but we don't do it to ourselves very often and ask ourselves, well, what was the best part of my day? And it's
Yeah.
a quick question that you could ask yourself before you go to bed at night or as you're laying down.
Or you're journaling. I'm going to
Yeah.
journal one of the best parts of my day today were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you, Michelle?
Yeah. Talking to you.
So I think that this whole creator and us being the creator, it kind of steps a little bit into this age of Aquarius, which is bringing out our feminine. And creation is very feminine. I mean, we're creators of life. So it is very feminine. So how does that tie into all of that? Or does it tie
It
in?
does. Oh, 1,000%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Between the sleeping phoenix and walking to the age of Aquarius, it means that we all can understand that you think about a womb. A womb is dark. And then things grow in the darkness without us knowing how or when. Like before we knew books or we had sonograms and stuff. We didn't know what was going on in our body. We just knew something was growing in us. And that's the same thing with the femininity of trusting your intuition and placing it quietly in your womb is such a great ritual. Yeah, a new creative idea for yourself. And usually at the beginning of anything, we have to hold it inward, sometimes in a dark place before, so we can build up our own confidence, so we can feel its connection growing within us, right? And so all of us women are being asked to like trust yourself that if there is a passion brewing inside of you, whether it's new partnership, new place to live, new business, whatever it is, allow to nurture it for a while, because you think about what we do when if you have chosen to have a child, like, you start to, if you're of, if you are in good mental health, you want to take care of your body. You want to eat the right foods and do the drinks. Well, think about that for the thing that you're starting to create for your life. What are you doing to commit to that thing that's growing in your womb? And then trust your intuition of like, well, and all of us have stories like, I don't know, for some reason I was craving oranges. So I ate oranges my whole thing, right? And it's intuitive. And it wasn't like the doctor said, you need to eat 10. I mean, I would come home and eat like 5 oranges. I was obviously depleted of the folic acid or whatever, and vitamin C. So it's that. It's like you internally as a female can create anything you desire if you place it in the darkness without knowing how it's going to roll out. Enjoy the journey like you did if you did have a child. I mean, there are some, and again, there are some phases that really stunk, right? That were not easy, but you kept plugging away and you didn't look at the signs to say, is this bad or good? You were like, nope, I'm committed to this. And then you allowed yourself to keep growing. And then as you were giving birth to it, which by the way, I do believe births don't have to be as painful. I think there are people who are saying that giving birth, you can actually go into the O area, like it can be ecstasy, although the body's changing. But I think because of the fear and everything else, and mine were painful, whatever, and it doesn't matter. There's no judgment on that. But I think that there still is a phase of like right before it comes through, you're going to go through a growth.
Mhm.
And And I've been just going through a growth again. Like I went through another dark night of the soul because I placed something new in my womb and I'm trying to build something new up for myself. But I had to come face to face with some of my greatest, darkest fears. And I remember journaling. I've never done this before. I remember journaling, sobbing for a full day
Wow.
because I wasn't going to let it shrink back in me.
Mhm. Yeah. Because you wanted
And
to let it go, not hold on to it.
yeah, and I had to have it had to have its time with me.
Yeah.
It had to say, this is the scariest thing we're ever going to do. And here is what is my greatest fear, which had to do with my Chiron. That a lot, your Chiron, like in astrology, if you ever get a reading, make sure the person knows Chiron because it will tell you the wound that you'll keep going over and over again that feels so insurmountable. And every time you walk through it, you're like, oh my God, I gained so much wisdom from it. But when you're in it, if you don't realize that's what it's Chiron, and Chiron says, come on, you can do it. You can do it. Don't go in, come on out. And that's what mine was. So it's kind of like that's how we have to deal with this idea of that when we're birthing something, a new desire, a new dream for ourselves, we're going to go through phases.
Yeah.
You know how to do it. You're female. You've probably done it. We've all done it many times and we just don't recognize it.
Exactly, exactly. So I love that we are coming into this age of the rise of the feminine, which means the creator. So that doesn't mean this is just for women.
No.
This is humanity. It's not
Yes.
just male or female or anything like that. This is everyone.
Yes. 1,000%. And I think that the more that women start to trust their own intuition and give themselves an opportunity to practice it, right? Like this doesn't feel right for me, or this doesn't really feel right for my family or for my children. And when people ask you why, you don't need to answer. We think we always have to justify our
Yeah.
intuition. You don't. You just be it. It's like, no, this just isn't right for us. End of story. Because that's what our male counterparts have done. But they've done it with the logical mind, which we need. We need both. And that's where I'm seeing is that the age of Aquarius is going to bring this into balance. Like we have to teach our young boys about their intuition, give them space to feel their emotions, tell them not to push through it or to ignore it. And we
Yeah.
need to give women who are really highly in tune to their emotions but can't take action that they've got to have. We've all got to have this balance in it all, that we can show up as our feminine selves and be uber successful while making sure the whole community, our whole team is nurtured and taken care of fairly, equality wise. Like that's what we want. We want everyone to be
Yes.
taken care of because that's what we're about as the feminine.
Yeah. And like you said, bringing things into balance. And I think
Yeah.
for a long time, I think during the feminist movement, it's like instead of bringing things into balance, I think most women just tried to be men.
We
The
had to.
pantsuit and
Yeah.
like you said, and the way of being and that more aggressiveness and stuff. And I've seen it in women who have just learned this masculine way of doing business, of being, of all that stuff. And it's good to know that it is coming into balance because that doesn't feel very feminine, you
Well,
know.
it doesn't feel good to most of us. It means that we're ignoring a lot of parts of ourselves. But in order to get into the man's game, we had to play their
Yeah,
rules.
yes,
And
yeah.
now we're at the point where we don't have to play their rules anymore, but it still feels scary to let go of like the push, the like, if they've done it, I'm going to follow their way. Like,
When
oh,
really the masculine and the feminine should be in balance and should be a complement to one another. Instead,
mhm.
it's been such a division for so long.
And that's why I think a lot of people who go into business for themselves, females, it's like that's why we're still in the conditioning of like I got to push and it's got to be really hard because you
Yeah.
came probably from some other business or corporation where that was just the mantra because it was male based. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that women
Oh,
couldn't even get their own credit card. Like they had to
yeah.
have a male. Like, you know what I mean? That was in the 70s.
And it was modeled in our own homes. If you really
Yes.
think about it, it doesn't matter if you were in corporate, that's what was kind of modeled in the home.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So oh my God, this was such a great conversation. And I love where we are going as a humanity. So I would definitely love to have you back and pick your brain on so
Anytime.
many more things. But
Yeah, anytime.
how do people work with you and how do they get a hold of you?
Okay, so my website is called theclarityroom.net. And all of my social media right now is Michelle. You see my name on the thing. It's Michelle underscore McInnis on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. Or they can just email me at info with my name. Info at michellemcginnis.com. Anyway, yeah, and I work in different capacities, like whether it's readings, whether it's just a strategy session, whether it's just a coaching, whether it's more of an intuitive session, whatever you need, we'll get you through it. We'll break through some of the old belief system because most of it is belief systems. We just don't see it yet.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
highly agree that a lot of us we kind of need the help, right? And
uh, I do.
I do too. We were not meant to go through this alone. While we strongly encourage that alone in that quiet time, I don't ever think that we were meant to go through it alone. And I'm
Mm-mm.
so grateful that you are here to help so many women with their passion and their dreams, and especially my passions and my dreams. And all of Michelle's information will be in the description on whatever platform you are watching this on. And Michelle, oh my gosh, thank you so much for
Thank
your
you.
time today. I am
Thank you.
super appreciative. And to everyone else, stay tuned for another episode of The Wealth Within Us. Right now, you can begin aging gracefully, full of energy, vitality, and overall wellness. But as time goes by, our bodies can start to show signs of aging. Until now, introducing LifeWave X39, the world's first product that activates our own cells. This breakthrough in regenerative science helps restore our bodies to a healthier, more youthful state. X39 uses patented phototherapy to elevate a copper peptide that signals cellular activation. Think of it as your internal repair system, generating younger, healthier cells that can rejuvenate your tissues and organs. Just one X39 patch applied daily is all it takes. Safe, non-invasive, and backed by clinical studies, this is your chance to regain control over your vitality. Don't miss out on the future of anti-aging. Experience the power of X39 today. Visit patchedlight.com and start living younger now.